everyone, welcome to another Classic Movie Monday, and today I thought it would be interesting to discuss another Humphrey Bogart film that I think is probably his second most recognized film next to Casablanca, and that is the Maltese Falcon. The interesting thing about this film is we usually see Humphrey Bogart in his more traditional role. Because if you watch an extensive amount of Humphrey Bogart films, you'll notice, for the most part, he's pretty much a private detective throughout a lot of them, and he goes through these complicated plots, and there's maybe some twists along the way, and it basically revolves around mostly murder and crime. This one is definitely no exception. But I think it gets this huge amount of recognition for just being one of the more well executed of those films that he's been in, where he's basically played a private eye detective going undercover and solving a murder mystery. So without further ado, let me kind of give you a brief summary in regards to what the film's about. And this will probably be difficult for me to explain because there's a lot of spoilers that end up happening throughout the plot. So I'm going to try to keep it as plain and simple as I can without really giving anything away. But you will see that within the beginning, his partner, because Humphrey Bogart has a partner, and by the way, he plays a man named Sam Spade, and basically Sam's partner / Humphrey Bogart's partner end up getting killed, or the partner ends up getting killed, murdered. And you'll see how at one point Humphrey Bogart's character, Sam Spade, ends up getting accused for the murder. And this ends up leading into this very complicated sort of murder plot that involves a black figure of a bird, and this is where we get the title of the film, The Maltese Falcon, which is supposed to be some kind of sort of relic, a very old relic that's worth a lot of money. You'll see how once the villains are revealed, they sort of have money as a huge motivation for them in order to obtain the Maltese Falcon. So you will see that that really plays a role within the film and with the plot. I think this film is well recognized for its performances because Humphrey Bogart pretty much plays a private detective fairly well, and probably the best out of all the other actors that have come and gone over the years that have tried to play private detectives. Maybe Liam Neeson comes in close in the latest film, A Walk Among Tombstones, but he just has this presence when he's on screen, and I think it definitely works to the film's advantage as having Humphrey Bogart be the leading man. And also you have some good side performances too from those who are involved, whether they be the villains or the side characters. And also there's sort of this double crossing that ends up resulting. So it kind of has this it just presents itself, I think, in an unpredictable way. So I think it gives a shock value to the audience when they realize the certain twists and turns that the plot goes through. So I think that's something that I think the critics at the time probably noticed, and I think what people still notice even today, because even though it's not as even though it's again not as an eventful plot, meaning that there's not a whole lot of different stages, there's still certain things that end up happening that end up sort of changing the circumstances or changing the focus. So it sort of gives the film an identity in that sense, when you're looking at the other kinds of Humphrey Bogart films that have focused in on him being a private detective. So again, I think it's just a worthy film to recommend, and I think it really does do well in trying to be the traditional, you know, uh, detective crime films that Hollywood was making during the time, because that was probably more popular back then. And I think it's not as popular as it is now. Although I think at times there is a sense of Hollywood trying to revive it at certain points. I think for the most part it's not maintained its same value. Sort of similar to westerns, where we don't see a whole lot of westerns coming out lately. So I think that's really the important thing to understand about this film is that it really plays into that sort of traditional um, murder mystery that is not really all that common in our generation, but was fairly common back in the day. And I think the Maltese Falcon is one of those films that executes um, that formula fairly well, and does it in sort of a unique way by having these little things that come in and bringing in a lot of character development and so on. So I think there is a sense of unpredictability to it that I think works to the film's advantage, and I think it's definitely one that is worth considering if you're interested in these kinds of films. And yes, it's the traditional black and white. I believe it was made in 1941. So, I mean, even though we had color in the later 30s, it still maintains that traditional form. And everybody, all the dudes are wearing suits, and it's very it just has that very classy look to it, especially considering the fact that it's um, approaching a murder mystery by using sort of an object as a kind of plot device to move the plot forward. And I think uh, using that as part of the title, I think really works out well too to the film's advantage. So you'll see how ultimately, motivations of greed and how that ends up playing into murder and manipulation and so on. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say without really giving anything away, because this film is really hard to talk about without going into spoiler territory, because it just has this plot that sets itself up, and then you almost can't explain it unless you explain the entire film. But I think it has been one that people have seen over the years, and I think it still maintains to have a high critical acclaim and praise from moviegoers. So if you enjoy those kinds of traditional detective films that are probably lacking nowadays, then I think this is definitely a good one to start off with if you enjoy that kind of setup. But ultimately, I think that's really all I can say. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.